In March 2021, a company that made phones and rice cookers announced it was going to build a car. Industry veterans said what industry veterans always say. Building cars is hard. It takes decades. It takes billions. It takes a supply chain nobody assembles from scratch anymore. A phone company doing it was a vanity project with a press release attached. 5 years later, that company's SUV was the best-selling vehicle in China. Not the best-selling electric vehicle, the best-selling vehicle of any kind, with any engine. It sold 37,969 units in January 2026. The Tesla Model Y sold 16,845 in the same month and dropped from first place in December to 20th. By the end of this, you'll understand exactly how a phone company got from a press release to the top of the sales chart in 5 years, and why the CEO of Ford flew one of these cars from Shanghai to Chicago so he could drive it himself. Making these videos takes a long time, so if you're finding this interesting, hit subscribe. There's a lot more coming on this, and the part about Ford is at the end. The company nobody in the industry took seriously. To understand why the reaction was a smirk, you have to know what Xiaomi actually was in 2021. It sold smartphones, mostly cheap ones. It also sold televisions, air purifiers, electric scooters, rice cookers, luggage and pens. That was the joke. The company that would sell you a $9 phone case was going to take on Mercedes. And the doubt wasn't unreasonable. Xiaomi had no automotive heritage of any kind, no engine plants, no crash test history, no dealer network. Building a car is not building a phone with wheels on it, and the graveyard of companies that learned that lesson is enormous. More than 400 Chinese electric vehicle companies have shut down since 2018, out of a peak of over 500. So if you were betting on a newcomer at that point, the odds said you'd lose. Xiaomi did have two things though, and both of them turned out to matter more than heritage. The first was money it had already made somewhere else. A car program normally means going to investors and asking them to fund a decade of losses, which is why so many of those 400 dead companies died. They ran out of other people's patience. Xiaomi funded the car out of a profitable consumer electronics business, which meant nobody could pull the plug at the 18-month mark because the numbers looked bad. The second was 100 million people who already owned something with its logo on it. Think about what a brand new car company actually has to buy. It has to buy awareness, because nobody has heard of it. It has to buy trust, because nobody knows if it will exist in 5 years. And it has to buy distribution, because nobody has a reason to walk into its showroom. Xiaomi had all three already, for free, sitting in the pockets of people who had bought a phone from it. There's one more thing worth saying about the mockery. It came almost entirely from inside the car industry. The people outside it, the ones who buy phones, were never confused about whether Xiaomi could make a decent product. They just assumed the product would be good, because the last 4 things they bought from the company were. Then the first car arrived, and the smirking stopped. 1 model, 1 year, and Detroit's entire electric output. The SU7 sedan went into production in 2024. 1 model, 1 factory, first year of building cars ever. It sold 136,854 units. Now put that next to the 2 American giants in the same market in the same year. General Motors sold 69,403 electric vehicles in China across Buick, Cadillac, and Chevrolet combined. 3 brands, decades of history, and roughly half of what Xiaomi did with a single nameplate. Ford is the number that stops people. Ford's only electric vehicle in China in 2024 was the Mustang Mach-E. It sold 999 of them, not 999,000. 999 cars in the largest car market on Earth for the entire year. That's not a typo, by the way. I checked it twice because a 3-digit annual sales figure for a company the size of Ford looks like a data entry error. Then 2025 happened, and the comparison stopped being about Detroit. Xiaomi delivered 400 and 800 vehicles across the year, against an original target of 350,000. It passed 500,000 cars built in 19 months, and the SU7 specifically sold 258,264 units against the Tesla Model 3's 200,361, which ended a 5-year run of Tesla owning that segment in China. That was the sedan. The SUV is where it got strange. 200,000 orders in 3 minutes. The YU7 is Xiaomi's first electric SUV, aimed squarely at the Tesla Model Y, which is the single best-selling vehicle on the planet. Xiaomi opened pre-orders on the 26th of June. 200,000 people ordered one inside the first 3 minutes. By the end of the first hour, it was over 289,000. Within 18 hours, 240,000 of those had been locked in with money down. For a car nobody had driven, from a company that had been building cars for about 14 months. If you want the scale of that in familiar terms, think about a phone launch queue. Then remember these are cars. A 3-minute window that moves 200,000 cars is not a car industry event. That's a sneaker drop. And it happened to a $40,000 SUV. The order book got so large that Xiaomi spent months just building through the backlog, and it didn't clear it until March 2026, which is when the January figure stops being surprising. By the time the YU7 hit #1 in China, the company was simply delivering a queue it had taken 9 months earlier. And then, in March 2026, Xiaomi did the thing that tells you the demand isn't a launch week illusion. 15,000 cars in 34 minutes, non-refundable. Xiaomi refreshed the SU7 on the 19th of March. New version, up to 902 kilometers of range, LiDAR on the sensor list. It sold 15,000 of them in 34 minutes. The important word in that sentence isn't 15,000. It's non-refundable. These weren't free reservations you can walk away from with a click. Buyers put down 5,000 win, about $725, on a car they'd never sat in, with a short window to change the configuration, and then no way out. 15,000 people did that in a bit over half an hour. Prices run from 219,900 to 303,900 yuan, which is roughly 31,170 to $43,950. So how does a phone company actually do this? Because the answer isn't that they got lucky with one design. Xiaomi came in with 3 advantages a traditional car company structurally cannot copy quickly. The first is the customer list. When Xiaomi launched a car, it was selling to people who already owned its phone, its television, and its vacuum cleaner, and who already had its app on the device in their pocket. Every other new car brand has to buy that audience. Xiaomi already had it, and it had their payment details. The second is that the car is a consumer electronics product with the company's own software in it. The SU7 runs the same operating system as Xiaomi phones and Xiaomi appliances, which means the car can turn the air conditioning on in your house while you're driving home. Not through a partner app with a separate login. Same system, same account, same voice assistant. Legacy manufacturers license their infotainment from suppliers, and it shows every time you use it. The third is speed. and this is the one the industry is quietly panicking about. Xiaomi went from announcement to a shipping car in 3 years, then refreshed that car with a major update inside 2 more. Model cycles in this business used to run 6 or 7 years. Xiaomi is running them at consumer electronics pace because that is the only pace it has ever known. It's worth sitting with what a 6-year model cycle means competitively. A traditional manufacturer that gets a decision wrong is stuck with it until the next platform. If the screen is too small, the screen stays too small for 6 years. If a rival ships a better battery in year 2, you watch them sell it for 4 years before you can answer. That was survivable when everyone moved at the same speed. Against a company that can put a new version of its best-selling car on sale with 902 kilometers of range and a LiDAR it did not have before, in the same window a legacy brand uses for a facelift, it is not survivable at all. And notice what Xiaomi did not do. It didn't build a cheap car. There are Chinese electric cars for under $12,000, and it stayed out of that fight entirely. Which brings us to the number that ends the argument, 3 out of 30. AlixPartners published its 23rd annual Global Automotive Outlook on the 25th of June 2026. It looked at 30 Chinese manufacturers focused on new energy vehicles and asked a simple question: how many of you actually made money last year? 3. BYD, which is the largest electric vehicle maker in the world, Leap Motor, and Xiaomi, the phone company, in its second full year of building cars, while 27 companies with more experience lost money. AlixPartners expects 7 of the 30 to break even by 2030, which means more than half the current field disappears. And here's the part I keep coming back to. Xiaomi has publicly said it will not build a car below 100,000 yuan, roughly $14,000. So the cheap end of the market, where you'd expect a newcomer to attack, is a fight it has deliberately refused. Every one of those sales figures was won in the $30,000 to $44,000 bracket, head-to-head with Tesla on the product itself. That's the context for the Ford story. Jim Farley is the chief executive of Ford. He had a Xiaomi SU7 flown from Shanghai to Chicago and drove it as his daily car for 6 months. His verdict, in his own words, was that the car is fantastic and that he didn't want to give it up. He also called Xiaomi an industry juggernaut and a consumer brand much stronger than most car companies. The head of an American car company, describing a phone company's first product in public in those terms. Now, the catches, and they're serious. In October 2025, an SU7 crashed at 167 kilometers per hour and caught fire, and the driver died trapped inside. The official investigation, reported in February 2026, found the electronic door release had failed because the fire shut down the low voltage system, and the car has no mechanical latch you can reach from outside. The doors could not be opened. That is not a small design footnote. It is the worst possible failure mode, and it happened because a door handle was treated as a styling decision. The consequences arrived fast. China's Ministry of Industry and Information Technology moved to ban retractable door handles outright and require mechanical releases inside and out, with the rule taking effect on the 1st of January 2027. Xiaomi recalled more than 117,000 SU7s to improve the driver assistance software, after questions about whether the system had failed to detect an obstacle. It faced public pressure to recall 370,000 cars over the door handles. It set up a safety committee, and Chinese regulators started restricting how any manufacturer is allowed to advertise semi-autonomous systems, banning phrases like smart driving. Xiaomi has also said it does not expect this year's automotive gross margin to beat last year's. Growing this fast costs money. There's a second catch that gets less attention and matters more if you were ever going to buy one. The whole advantage I just described, the shared operating system and the account that knows you, only works if you live inside that ecosystem. If your phone is an iPhone and your appliances are not Xiaomi, a large part of what makes this car special simply doesn't switch on. The product is genuinely excellent. It is also a lock-in strategy, and it's worth naming that rather than pretending the integration is a free gift. So the honest version of this story has a body count and a recall list in it, and any telling that leaves those out is selling you something. The point isn't that Xiaomi is a better car company than Ford. In a lot of ways, it obviously isn't. Ford has crash test institutions, service networks, and a century of learning how a door handle should work, which is exactly the lesson Xiaomi just paid for in the worst way. The point is that none of that century of learning stopped a phone company from taking the top of the sales chart in 5 years. For about 100 years, the thing that protected car companies was that cars were hard to engineer, hard to tool, hard to distribute. That difficulty was the moat, and it kept the number of serious players small enough to count on your fingers. Electrification drained the moat. An electric car has no gearbox to perfect, no combustion engine with 100 years of accumulated advantage inside it. What's left is a battery, some motors, a body, and software. Batteries you can buy from CATL. Motors are increasingly a commodity, and software is the thing a consumer electronics company is already better at than any manufacturer in Detroit or Stuttgart. So the question stopped being whether an outsider could build a credible car, and became which outsiders have the customer base and the cash to try. Xiaomi had both. So does Huawei, which is inside several brands already. So does anyone else in China with 100 million users and a balance sheet. And this isn't finished. Xiaomi is targeting 550,000 deliveries in 2026. It has cleared its order backlog, and it is now refreshing products faster than its rivals can respond to them. So here's what I want to know from you. If Xiaomi opened a showroom in your country tomorrow and offered you that car at $32,000, fully warranted, would you actually buy a car from a phone company? Yes or no, and tell me which country you're in. Because I suspect the answer changes a lot depending on where you're sitting.